Hello, this is Cho of the Shiny Colors Discord. Welcome to another episode of the Shiny Review. Today we've got two new cards to talk about. We have the new Produce SSR for Toru, as well as the new Support SSR for Luca. Now keep in mind that both of these cards are limited. Once this banner is over, the only way you're going to be getting extra copies is either through subticks that are added in the shop later, or through paid-only step-ups. So, if you want your copies, now is realistically your only time to get them. Starting things off, we have Toru, who is a visual unit. Her initial appeal is a visual 3.5 to all judges that grants you a visual 40% buff for 4 turns per successful dodge. You have up to 5 stacks that you can get of this over those 3 turns, and you get an additional +1 mulligan. The plus appeal, which requires all of Nocchill, and for it to be turned to her earlier, has an evasion 10% buff for 5 turns. So what this means is that every time you dodge, you get a 40% visual buff that lasts for 4 turns. You have a 3-turn window to dodge as many times as possible to get up to 5 stacks, so upwards of a visual 200% buff. The upgraded version of the appeal is a visual 4.5 to all judges, and grants a visual 80% buff for 4 turns with every successful dodge in the next 3 turns up to 5 times, so a total of a 400% buff. This also grants +1 mulligan, and has the same plus appeal requirement to have all of Nocchill and for it to be turned to her earlier for a 10% evasion buff for 5 turns. For her passives, Toru's 2-star passive is a visual 100% up that requires 1 or more active evasion up buffs and has a 25% chance to activate twice. Her 4-star passive is a visual 150% up and attention 100% up that requires 2 or more active evasion up buffs, which has a 25% chance to activate 3 times. Her total stat uncapped is a +400 to visual. Her memory appeal when maxed out is a visual 2.0 that fortifies your visual buffs and links into a visual 3.0 that fortifies your visual buffs. Toru is a very solid new inclusion for visual Nocchill, slotting in exactly for the visual position. Her appeals have an insanely high amount of ramp-up potential, looking at upwards of a 400% visual buff on her 4-star appeal alone, and even a modest 200% from her initial appeal, assuming you get all 5 evasion procs. Her passives work well with proper support, given that her appeals only give you a 10% chance to evade, and there are cards within visual Nocchill that give you a much higher chance of successfully evading. And the attention up from her 4-star passive should make getting the stacks on her appeal much easier. Her memory appeal plays well with the intention of her appeals, but it makes it getting to your link appeal that much harder because you're spending your early turns using Toru appeals. So you can't really have your cake and eat it too if you want to play Toru as a center. You kind of have to bite the bullet and pick one way or the other, and I think, honestly speaking, I feel like she makes much more sense as your visual unit rather than your center. I would give her a very easy S as a unit. She has a lot of high potential with big damage ramp up, she has good AoE appeals, and generally has good synergy with the rest of her team. As a center, I would say she's about an A-. I think the values are fine, but the payoff might be a little weird in a similar sense to some of the other cards we've talked about recently that have the Fortify effect. While it does have a cool idea for follow-up, sometimes if the damage isn't good enough anyway, the memory appeal might not have really changed anything, even with the fortification, and because you're already using her AoE appeals, I'm not really sure what the follow-up would ultimately be after that point. So she'll get that A-. Next then, of course, we have Luca, who is a dance support. Her masteries include Unit Mastery SP, which reaches +12 at level 75, otherwise +8 at level 65, +4 at level 50. She has access to Dance Mastery Dance Limit Up, reaching +5 at level 75, +4 at level 70, +3 level 65, +2 level 60. Unit Mastery Stamina, reaching +5 at level 80, +4 at level 70, +3 at level 65, +1 at level 55. And lastly, Unit Mastery Dance, reaching +8 at level 80, +5 at level 75, +3 at level 65, +1 at level 50. Now those are a lot of numbers, and realistically a lot of Luca's better skills are kind of stuck at the back half of everything, so if you want to look at it that way, 3 of her masteries either cap out or are solid enough at 3 stars, which is a pretty good spot, I would say, if you are fully intending on using this Luca. If you are building Dance Comedic, you kind of almost have to go all the way for the 4-star appeal. but you don't necessarily have to if you're not specifically trying to build Dance Cometic. If you're just looking for the utility, focus on 2 or 3 stars. Luca's Initial Appeal is a Dance 2.5 that grants 1 mulligan. Her 4-star Appeal is a Dance 3.5 that duets randomly with Cometic and also grants a mulligan. For her passives, her 2-star passive is a Dance 140% up with a very interesting requirement. You have to have made a generated live skill, and that can be either in your hand or somewhere in the deck of appeals that you still have yet to use. This has a 20% chance to activate twice. Now, if you've forgotten, most of the better Cometic cards have a gimmick where after they use an appeal, they generate a new appeal that goes somewhere into the deck that has an enhanced effect, whether it be an AoE or a really strong buff. As long as you have done at least that, and the appeal is somewhere, you will be able to activate this 140% buff. Her 4-star passive is a Dance 100% up if you are in the dance position, and it has a 20% chance to activate once. Her total stat uncapped is a plus 250 to dance. Luca is an interesting support that plays directly into what Dance Cometic have been trying to push for the last while, and as such means that she's actually a very good support for that team specifically. The duet does feel a little out of place. They aren't really that dependent on the link appeal effect per se, especially since many of them have access to things like change appeals, so the mulligan is what you're more concerned about than anything else. And again, that 2-star passive really does help elevate this team in a particular way, just because you are now incentivized to be using those generated appeals or making the generated appeals so that you have access to this 140% passive on everybody. I would give this card an easy B- to an A. I don't think this card is necessarily broken yet, but I think that Dance Cometic will absolutely be looking to grab the support if at all possible. So, that will do it for the video today. Thank you so much, as always, for watching. Next time we'll be talking about whatever banner comes next, so let's look forward to that together. Till then, I've been Cho. Thank you again for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day.